You're tuned into The Collective Voice, thought-provoking interviews co-hosted by young adults, fostering deep faith through courageous questions. Welcome to the conversation. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to The Collective Voice. I'm Reverend Phil Dickey. Glad to be here with you on another episode for the 787 podcast here. Cece's here with me as well, yet again, and we have a treat today. This is just going to be amazing. I think Cece's already blushing, which makes me really happy. This is going to be fantastic. So, Cece, who do we have on the pod today?
Yeah, I am. We have with us, super exciting, my very own husband, Mike Saulnier. It's Bring Your Husband to Work Day. So I'm really excited, truly. I'm wearing a Northwestern sweatshirt because that's where Mike went to law school. And Mike and I have been together for almost 10 years now, which is wild. We met in campus ministry in college. And lifelong Lutheran, me, myself.
Hold on, where was college?
Texas A&M University. We have lots of feelings about that. Nope, not brought to you. Nope,
not brought to you by Texas A&M University. Okay.
Maybe by Treehouse Campus Ministry.
Okay, there you go. We'll go with that one.
Not A&M.
Okay.
Mike went to law school. He is a patent litigator, but really he is a person of faith, right? Part of the Gather Awesome community on our Synod, our regional bodies council. So we're excited to have you, Mike. What a treat for both of us, and really a treat for me. And I'm going to send this to all of our friends.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Is there anything that you'd? Oh, sorry, Phil. Like to say about yourself?
Bio. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add to it?
My wife knows me better than I know myself, so I'll leave it at that.
I'll just say, people who can't see, Mike is full on wearing a Hawaiian shirt because that's a big part of his personality.
Don't have to be boring and a lawyer.
I was going to say, is that usual lawyer attire? And I appreciate that it is.
On Hawaiian Shirt Fridays, it is. I've started a couple people in my office doing that. So, we do our best.
Got to bring a little flavor to it. I appreciate that. Well, so would love to just know a little bit of background history. What's we don't have your whole background in history or whatever, but would love to know. We talk a lot in the transition period from as people graduate out of college and start to establish themselves as an adult, right? We call it young adult, I guess, but kind of what got you here, right? What made you decide law school is the way you wanted to go? And obviously you talked about meeting at a campus ministry, so clearly faith has been a part of who you are from the beginning, I guess. Did you grow up in a faith community too? And you said San Antonio, right? So did you grow up in a church in San Antonio?
I sure did. I am a cradle Lutheran. My grandfather's actually a Lutheran pastor as
amazing.
Well. He's so thrilled that none of his 7 grandchildren decided to be a Lutheran pastor, but one married in. So he loves loves that Cece is his protege, so to speak.
That made you the shining grandchild?
It made me the shining grandchild, to be fair.
That's fair.
All of us other grandchildren like to say Cece was Grandpa's favorite grandchild.
And they're not wrong.
That's awesome.
But Mike, tell them about your becoming elected Pope in VBS.
Yes. So when I was must have been 4th or 5th grade, I started going to VBSs. And one of them was with a friend. They were part of a Catholic church. And so, Catholics have a lot of different things that Lutherans don't have. And one of those things is a pope. And so one of the little modules we did was about how do pope elections happen? And then we did a mock election of a pope. And everyone else in my VBS group, all the Catholic kids, decided that I knew more about the Bible, I think, probably because I went to a Lutheran elementary school growing up. And so I was elected the Pope because I was the most Catholic of the group.
Scandal, such a scandal.
It was a scandal. I think the first and last time a non-Catholic Pope is going to get elected.
A Lutheran got elected as a Catholic
Pope? Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, faith was a really big part of my upbringing. I kind of mentioned it. I went to Lutheran elementary school. We lived a block away from the church that we attended. And they had two services. They had the 8:30 service, AM service, and the 11 o'clock service. And my mom loved going to 8:30 AM service, but for us, it wasn't really the 8:30 AM service. It was the 8:35 service because we always walked in late, even though we lived a 2.5 minute walk from the church. So, growing up, we were in there every Sunday. I was a part of youth group. I sang in choir. I played in the band for a bit. I mentored kids. I was a part of I was worked on the church nursery. I mean, I was really, really, really involved in church growing up. And so when I went off to college, I initially was like, all right, I need a break from all of this. I'm not going to do any of it. Um, Someone had reached out and like kind of told me a little bit about Treehouse before going, but I was like, I need a
Okay,
break.
what is
Gonna
Treehouse?
take a
Just for
break.
people who don't know what Treehouse is.
Yes, so Treehouse is the ELCA Lutheran campus ministry at Texas A&M. So my first semester, I wasn't going to go to church at all, wasn't going to do any of it, and really realized that I was kind of missing that kind of community. Um, I was really involved. I was an electrical engineering major, did a ton of electrical engineering stuff. Very few of my friends, I don't think none of my close friends in college were religious at all. And I realized I was kind of missing something that part of my life, uh, really after the first semester that I was there. And so I got connected with Treehouse, the Treehouse campus ministry, the Lutheran campus ministry in College Station. And it was a little bit happenstance. It was actually the first time I met Cece. I was going to church because I decided I just needed to try church. And then I saw some young people in the back, and I was like, oh, thank God. So I went to
Back
sit
row,
in,
represent.
yes, our back row, which for me was really uncomfortable because my mom made us march down the church, even though we were late every weekend, and sit in the front row. Um, so I sat in the back row with these other college students. I was like, this is going to be different. And one of them invited me to Treehouse after that. And Cece was also, I think, there that Sunday. And
That was the first
then,
Sunday we met.
yeah, that was the first time that we'd met. And then the
Thank
rest is
God she
history.
invited him to Treehouse. Like, truly.
So, yeah. And
Shout
so,
out
so
Kirsten.
she, she's great. So it was really a, a it was where I found my community. It was my space studying and electrical engineering and all the kind of like programming and hardcore stuff that I was doing otherwise. And really, I mean, I'll be honest, my extracurricular activities in college were treehouse and rock climbing, and that was it. Didn't really do much else. I ended up becoming part of the leadership in Treehouse. I was the co-president for a year. I helped run the freshman small group for a year, and that was kind of my first taste of, well, not first taste, but really my introduction to some of those kind of leadership roles in faith communities. Um, I think Cece is, another part of this too. One of the things that we had happen in Treehouse is we had a couple people come that had done YAGM. It's called Young Adults in Global Mission. That's a program run out of the ELCA, and they talked about this idea of like a year of service. And that was really attractive to me because I had been kind of so laser focused on finishing school and trying to decide what was next. I was like, man, this sounds like a great transition period. A lot of them, the young adult things, they'll do it as a part of like intentional community. That idea was really really exciting for me, especially as someone who didn't really necessarily have like those strong senses of community other than in um, in these like kind of religious spaces. So that was something that I was excited about too. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I was in between trying to decide if I was going to go get my master's degree in electrical engineering at A&M and become an engineer, or go to law school. Um, I come from a family of electrical engineers. Kind of funnily enough, my dad's one, my older brother's one, my mom worked with software stuff. So it was kind of it was
Rite of
told in this,
passage.
yeah, it was a rite of passage that I would become an electrical engineer as well. I had worked at an electrical utility company in San Antonio as an electrical engineering intern. I kind of realized that I was just too curious about too many things. And I didn't want to just work on becoming an expert in just one niche part of a technology area or one kind of thing. And so I was trying to figure, I was really struggling with what to do. And I met a few lawyers through Cecie and otherwise, and realized, man, I can, combine my love of technology and the electrical engineering kind of stuff that I'm doing, and also deal with new stuff every day. And so that is kind of how my path to law school became clear. The other important aspect,
Can I just
yeah,
tell you, Mike,
yeah,
real
go for it,
fast?
Phil. Yeah.
I too was going to become an electrical engineer because I come from a family of
No.
electricians.
Oh
So
my
I did
God.
electrical work for like starting in middle school. I was doing electrical work with my dad and like my grandfather and my uncle, all electricians. And I thought, okay, I've seen the like field side of it. I'm going to go and like do the engineering side of it. So like I could, because often we would get plans and be like, what are these engineers doing? This doesn't actually work in the real world. Like this is not how it actually happens. And then I took calculus my first semester of college and got a C, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't be an engineer.
Maybe
So anyway,
not.
maybe
Well,
there's something else for me. And then I took a religious studies course, and I was like, done, sold. Here I go. Anyway, so it's just fun.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't
I
even
love
study
that,
religion
Phil.
at a public university, so I was naive. I was a very sheltered, small Missouri town. Like anyway. So similarities here,
That's
Mike.
great.
Well done.
Yeah.
You did it. Anyway, love it.
Well, that's hilarious too, because my dad actually was an electrician, and then he was told that he moved to Texas and he didn't want to work in the heat all day every day,
Don't blame
and
him.
decided
Yeah.
to go to college. So we did a lot of that kind of same stuff growing up, and it's something that I loved about it. It's problem solving, it's using
Totally,
your
it's great.
hands. Yeah, it's amazing.
And can I just pause here? It's so
Yeah,
fun, like knowing some of these stories. One, hi, Ellen and Steve. I'm sure you're listening. But two, a part of Steve's story, my father-in-law's, Mike's dad, is that he was an electrician. When he got married, moved to Texas. Ellen graduated from college. She started working. Steve went to night school. He was not going to be an engineer. He was going to do something more with, I don't know, like get
an
a
electrical
certificate.
technician. Yeah,
Right. So, and one of his professors said, you are too smart for this. You are driven. You need to enroll in full-time college and get an engineering degree. And that changed the course of his life. And very similarly with Mike, when he started having conversations with a man from my congregation, Jay, who is a lawyer, my dad's friend Fred, who is a lawyer, it changed Mike's life. Like it changed his trajectory. So could you speak, Mike, just briefly before you jump back onto your story
sure.
about like that role of mentor for you? And then also again, because I know you, the importance you have with mentoring others.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Look, I mean, I think being poured into is one of the things I have just been the luckiest throughout my life with. I just happened to run into some of the most incredible people. Um, and and really the role of mentor is incredibly important, especially when you're in those really formative years. I mean, I mean, I still remember a couple specific conversations that kind of stick out in my mind as like things that helped me decide like, okay, this is what I want to do. And it's those kind of conversations with people who, take time out of their really busy days and just sit with you at lunch and try to get to know you. And it's really that initial like human connection, because whenever you start those kind of conversations, it's not just, hey, what do you want from me? Right? It is like, how are you doing? I'd love like what's your past? What kind of fun stuff are you working on? And that kind of stuff organically grows into these kind of relationships that really can move your trajectory in life. Um, and so I think the role of or having mentors is incredibly important. And even if you don't call them that or label it that, it's as a young adult, it's it's not being afraid to chat with the adults around you. I know that there's sometimes, and I have it too, is I would get really uncomfortable with like even hanging out with my friends' parents or stuff like that. But really, some of those people can give you perspectives on things that you just have, no idea when you start the conversation with them. Like to give a little bit more of my story, I'm a patent litigator now. I initially thought I wanted to do like solar panels and renewable energy, like regulation stuff. And so the initial lawyers I talked to in my life were like, "Oh my God, you'd be great at that. It's so good that you have a technical background in these things. That's awesome." And I was doing it and I was having so much fun. And then Cece introduced me to a couple of these other lawyers that were a part of her life, and they talked about what they did with patent litigation. And I was like, "Oh my God, that sounds like just a blast, right? I get to talk with really smart people every day and act like I'm not even act, have them just pour information and really cool stuff about niche things into me all the time. And then I have to figure out how to work through it and make it understandable for a normal person. But I was like, man, this sounds really incredible. But I wouldn't have even known about that as an option without those people and those conversations that I had. And even, I mean, even still now to this day, I keep in contact with all of them. Right, I reach out every once in a while, say how are you doing, and they've been just so incredibly supportive of my career. Even if it's not like they're not giving me a job or anything like that, I know that I have people that are supporting me and cheering me from the sidelines that I'm not related to, and that have really, I mean, they have no business, right, being such a big part of my life, and so I just feel so incredibly blessed to do that. Now, the flip side of that is when you get poured into. My personal belief is like you have an obligation to give that right back. Um, it it I mean I don't say this lightly. It's like I am incredibly busy. Most days I'm working 10 plus hours. I work most weekends at least a few hours, but one of the most important and fun things that I do is helping develop law students and new attorneys and just people generally, right? If someone wants to talk to me, I always make time and say yes, because those kind of conversations were got me to the place that I am now, and I just feel like just a deep obligation to do that. And I think it's important, like when you're a part of any community, when a community is filling you and it is providing you life, why not pour back into that community or those people that are a part of it? It's this like really, I feel like a lot of life right now is really draining, right? Like your phone is always pinging you for attention. There's always people that are asking you for things. There's people trying to scam you all over the place. And so when you find a place that invests in you, and regardless of how it is, right? It could be professionally, it could be spiritually, it could be emotionally. You pouring yourself back in, even when you're tired, even when it's hard, just it feels so good, and I think it really makes a big difference. Or if you're going to an event and it's 8 p.m. and you've been working all day and you just show up with a smile on your face, ready to hang out with people, like my gosh, like what a great feeling, what a great place to be. So I think it's really easy as a young adult to feel isolated and feel like there aren't those kind of spaces and communities. But once you do find that, it's really important for you to invest back into it or help other people with the communities that they're working on. So sorry, that was a really rambling answer, but
well said. I think it's really important.
And so for me, getting back to my story a little bit, I went off to law school. Cece and I don't know, she's way smarter than I am, so she got into Yale Divinity School and then the Lutheran School of Theology in Chicago. And unfortunately, I'm not smart enough to get into Yale Law School. And we decided we wanted to go to grad school in the same place. So she was very generous and kind and decided to come to Chicago with me, with the Northwestern shirt that she had on. And
Best decision of my life.
best decision of my life too. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit because I know I don't want to spend 2 hours talking because I could spend all day talking with y'all. But we finished grad school up. We spent 3 years there. We spent our formative pandemic years there. We got married while we were in Chicago. And then the reason why we're back in Texas is kind of funny. So we got there our first semester. This was 2019 in the summer, so end of summer 2019, and Chicago in the end of summer, early fall, gorgeous. Cece was like, "Oh my God, the weather is amazing. This place is so beautiful. Like I could see us living here for a little bit." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds great. You know, what an adventure. This will be the next thing." And we get to Halloween, and it starts snowing. I get a text from Cece that says, "I can't do this, Mike. We got to go back to Texas." And so here we are, right?
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Back to Austin, and I get that too. I couldn't handle the dark and the cold for the months either. God bless those of you who are listening who are in the upper Midwest, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I did it for 3 years, and I'm back in Texas. I like the sun too much.
I was there this week, and we had snowflakes, we had rain, and it was basically cloudy the entire time. And the one day we had some sunshine.
Sounds like
it was
Chicago.
so windy, and
I love Chicago.
I went for a run, and it was 39 degrees.
Ooh.
I was like, "What is happening? It's 80 degrees at home right now, and I'm dying." Anyway,
So
I'm fine. Everything's fine. I hate the cold.
I hate the cold. So that's how we ended up back in Austin. I think we didn't really have a faith community too much. I mean, as a part of the pandemic and kind of a part of CC being in seminary, it makes it a lot more challenging to find ways to nurture your faith together. Because when she's working on Sunday, I can show up, but it's almost like taking Cece to my office, right? Like when I have a deposition. I don't think that's fair to her, and I'm sure in the same way she's not going to get the same thing out of it. And so that's kind of, I mean, it's one of the, we could talk a little bit more about this later, but it's kind of one of the challenges of being in a relationship with a ministered professional. But we kind of realized that we were going to a Saturday night service for a while, but the pandemic happened. That kind of stopped in Chicago.
Mhm.
And so when we moved back to Austin, one of the big things that we were discussing was, how do we find a faith community that nurtures us both? And we were looking around, and there's just like, at least well advertised, there's not that much out there. And so Cece, my recollection is Cece heard of this new idea that was kind of percolating called the Gather Network. It's kind of run loosely affiliated, I think, with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America.
It's now much more, but when it started,
and
brainchild.
And the idea is, create community where you're at, right? Find other young adults and create community space. And so Cece really kind of worked this up from ground zero. She found another Lutheran pastor in the area, or I guess at this time y'all were pastoral interns or something, vicars. And so we started meeting at Central Market weekly on Wednesdays, and Cece's probably told this
Monthly Thursdays.
Monthly Thursdays. Yes, we were meeting monthly on Thursdays, and really it kind of just started out as a hangout, get together, little devotion, snacks, fellowship. It really wasn't that structured. And then, I think that what I kind of realized is like that was a place for me, right? I didn't have to be leading it. Cece wasn't the vicar or pastor there, like she was helping lead it, but it wasn't the same kind of I guess obligations that come, and expectations that come with being like a leader at a church. And so it really was kind of this nice little, I like to think of it as like a little garden, right? A little playground in a garden, because it allowed both of us to kind of do what we were interested in, right? If we want to try a new type of worship or introduce people to a new type of short worship or something like that, we could do it. We want to talk about eco-justice and eco-theology, we can do it. We want to do a specific devotion about Epiphany, we can do it. We want to do Hold in the Evening Prayer, we can do it. And it wasn't a defined thing month to month. Every month we would try something a little bit different or a little bit new, and creative, and really thinking about how selfishly, like, what do we find fun? What do we want in a faith community? It was really a way to kind of take it and make it our own. And it's really blossomed since. And I think one of the main reasons for that, and the main reason that both of us wanted to start this and be a part of it, was we wanted community. We desperately wanted community. Especially, once you get married, you've had your separate friends, your separate lives, and you come together. And we didn't have a lot of friends that were ours. I mean, we'd started making them in Chicago and things like that, but Gather was a place where it was just ours. We had collective friends, we met a lot of interesting new people, and we all had kind of this common backing to it of people who were, I wouldn't say desperate, because that's not quite the right word, but people who were craving a community space where they could, one, be with young adults, and two, nourish their not just social life, but also faith life too, in a place that wasn't your kind of traditional spots for young adults right now, which are, bars, going out on the weekends, things like that. So it was really just this wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to nourish our faith together.
Mike, can I ask?
Sure.
So again, I know your story, I know your history, and I really love you saying, and I haven't heard this for those that are listening in, that him describing a Gather as a playground in a garden, and I think that's beautiful. I'm also noticing the language you're using, ours, we, ours. And it's a reminder for me, because when I tell the story of Gather, I talk a lot about like me as the founder and me as the co-leader. But Mike's the man like right up behind my shoulder, like in intimate conversations, like driving home from things, going on walks in the evening, like brainstorming, connecting, offering ideas. And so that's a good reminder, honestly, for me and the Gather Austin story, of just how impactful your quiet leadership was in that. And if you can't tell, which you probably can't, Mike is a very loud guy, big personality. And so like thinking of your leadership as quiet and Gather is unique. But I want to stay with the garden.
Yeah.
I know that garden imagery is important to you. I know you think of God as a gardener. I know that you built a garden with your grandfather, a Lutheran pastor who is, now deceased. Can you share a little bit more about your faith as a garden, your relationship with God, the gardener? And then we kind of started, like we were leading down this pathway, but I know there's some more desolate, barren parts of your faith life, parts when that garden did not thrive. And can you share that with us? Because I think that's an important part of your story. And then for other young adults who, might be in a desolate, barren, or just like seeded, but not yet sprouted garden right now themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'll characterize that as weed killer. Someone threw some weed killer on my garden, which took a while to replant and renourish and get the soil together to regrow. And I think that's a common refrain amongst young adults. Like it's a tough time to be alive. It's a tough time to be faithful. It's a tough time to find community. But I'll kind of, I guess we'll start with that imagery of God the gardener. In my life, I don't make decisions super rashly. It takes me a really long time to decide and kind of figure out what I'm interested in, what I want to do. I'm not a, change left and right. And so for me, my faith journey has been kind of that of a garden. And it goes through seasons, right? I mean, in all the ways. It really started with, in a lot of ways, when I was a kid, right? That being forced to go to church every Sunday. I mean, I'll be honest, right? Like sometimes it was like, oh my God, do I have to go again today? And then every time I went, it was just that little more, and like I enjoyed it just a little bit more. And there were seasons where I was like, I am so busy, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here. But really, like that for me was kind of the start of this. I think that partially like my parents also are incredibly faithful people. How they show their faithfulness is by showing up. They're not the kind of people who are on church council. They're not directing how things go. But they show up every Sunday and they give every Sunday. And regardless of who the pastor is or who's there, they show up to be a part of their community. And so I think that parallels really well with this garden analogy that we're kind of talking about, because with a garden, particularly depending on what you're growing, you need to be out there every other day, right? You got to be watering, you have to be fertilizing, you have to pick the weeds out. And so that kind of foundation, I think, is the foundation of faith, right? It's not something that is always glamorous or always big and loud. It's the small things every day that you do that really kind of add up to this. And can really blossom and flourish. It goes along with the mentorship kind of thing that I was talking about earlier, right? When people are pouring into you, a lot of the times, like sometimes you can remember an event or two, but it's the collection of all of those things. And so how I view my faith is something where I show up every day. And it's not perfect, right? I don't go to church every Sunday anymore, even still. I'll be the first one to admit that. There was a period where there was like 8 months where I didn't go to church at all. My wife's a pastor. Um, and but I still try to do things that help nourish my garden, right, and my faith. And right now, and recently in my life, that's been gather, right? Like that is probably the way that I've done it. In college, that was Treehouse and that community. Before that, it was really my family, my grandfather. He would come over on every Sunday. So like our rhythm was like go to church Sunday morning, do some house chores or something like that in the afternoon, or house projects with my dad, and then my grandpa would come over for dinner, right? And we do that every single week. And so all of those kind of collective things, I think, have really impacted my faith. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about gardens go through seasons. So we've talked a little bit about that. And sometimes your garden gets sabotaged, is the nicest way to put it. Or there's things out of your control that you can't do, right? There's a hailstorm that comes and just knocks everything out. And there's nothing you can do with that. So, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. I decided that I wanted to do a year of service. I graduated college in 3 years, and then decided I wanted to take a gap and do something, something that I wasn't going to be able to do for the rest of my life. And I was really intrigued by this idea of doing service, because everything else I'd done up to that point is like pretty selfish, right? Like I was really focused on me and my community and pouring into my community and then pouring back to me. And I didn't really look outwards. So I decided to do a year of service, their program. I'm not going to talk about which one it was. It was through a church body though, and it was actually run in part out of a church in the area. So after college, and I'll give you a little bit of background. If you don't know, for those of you who don't know what a year of service is, it is basically a commitment to community and living simply and serving others. You don't get paid anything. Your housing is taken care of. And in this instance, you were given like, I think our monthly like food budget for 5 or 6 people was, I mean, smaller than now what we do weekly, right? It's focusing on sustainability, on being with another, and you know, a lot of the times with these year of service programs, you get connected with a nonprofit or something in the area, and you do work for them. Like, so that's the work that you do for a year. So it's focusing on intentional community. You know, sometimes it's focused on faith, sometimes it's not. It really, you know, it depends on the organization, and it's a commitment to trying to live life differently. And as someone who is incredibly privileged, this was something that was, you know, really interesting to me. So I agreed to do this year of service. I applied to a couple actually, and there was one that I was just so excited for it. So the other thing too is, you know, if you know how hiring works and you're a young adult, there's a couple phases for hiring, and it's kind of hard to switch and find jobs, especially when you're done with college or you're doing a gap year before grad school or whatever, that'll take you. So I got to this place, and it was really wonderful. I was rooming with was it 4 women? It was me and 4 women in the house that we were living in. We all had our own rooms, things like that, and I started the hardest job of my life. I was working at with a direct homelessness service. So the idea, and there's a couple of these around the country, but the idea is a lot of the times with people experiencing homelessness, you can't just you can't throw someone who's experiencing homelessness into a structured routine and expect that to stick. So the idea of the place that I was working at was it was a tent camp, but it had services around it. So the idea was you get someone in the place, they can still roam. There's not a lot of strict rules. There's food, there's places to get psychiatric help. There's food kitchen, all that kind of stuff. All these services are in a single area. So I was working at that, and my job was as the camp manager. So I did intakes and managed disputes and decided who was going to be in or out. And this was a 21-year-old guy who had never done.
Does it say you're 21 years old?
21-year-old.
Oh,
Bachelor of Science
and electrical
engineering, right? Like not social work.
None of this kind of stuff. And so I spent probably about 2 months total there, Cece, working.
Not even. Yeah. It was 5 weeks in that this happened.
But then I worked for another week too. So regardless, it was.
Then he lived in his car.
Okay, so you're getting ahead of I'm getting ahead of yourself. So I'm working this job. It is the toughest thing I've ever done. I feel guilty every day. I never know if I make the right decision. I almost got stabbed one time. It was.
Which he didn't tell his family about for years.
I mean, it was.
Some things are better left unsaid.
It was one of the craziest, hardest things I'd ever done, and the reason why it was doable, I mean, at all, was because of the people that I was living with, right, and the community that I was a part of. We got told 5 weeks in, no warning, nothing, that they were canceling the program, that we had to vacate the premises in a week. And if we didn't sue them, we'd have $500. And this is $500. This is to be clear, this is run out of a church. This is a nonprofit run out of a church, a year of service that's run out of a faith community. And excuse my language, every fucking person that was on that board was retired, old, white, and didn't give a shit. The only thing they cared about, I mean, we went to meetings, we went to the church council, we talked to the pastors, we went to the governing bodies of the church. Nobody gave a shit. The only people that cared was a nonprofit that we had been in connection with, that ended up giving a couple of the people jobs who decided that they wanted to stay and basically make it so that they could live their year out there at cost to them, and things like that. And these people didn't realize how disruptive this was. Let me just give you a little bit of background on the other people. So I was fine, right? I have a rich family. I could just go home. I had a car. I had been working jobs. I had a safety net. I had money.
Home was a safe
Home was a
place for
fine
you.
place. One of the people that I worked with, she had deferred going to medical school at one of the best medical schools in the country for a year to do this. And they told her at the end of August that she didn't have anything to do, right? Like she couldn't stay. You can't just go back on that. And you can't just find another job on a dime like that. I mean, in 2019, like $500 was more than it is now, but it still wasn't much, right? You could get a hotel for a couple days. You couldn't get food. That was it. And it was just, all right, y'all gonna move out. Sorry, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. And it's like, actually, your hands aren't tied, right? You're a church with quite a bit of money, and you have an obligation to these young adults to help take care of them. And that was the problem, is that everyone we called said, not my problem. Sorry, can't do anything about it. I mean, it didn't matter who it was. Every single person that we reached out to for help didn't. And, there was a lot of other issues that go on that I won't get into it, but the other people that I was living with, one of them, she had deferred that. Another one had deferred a PhD program for a year. And a lot of these people did not have homes to go back to. They had a lot of debt from undergrad. They had a plan for the future, and they had no safety net. And now how I view it is, right, when you are an adult and you are comfortable and you have the means and you're taking people, these young people that are very vulnerable, into your care, you have an obligation to make sure that they are taken care of. I don't care who you are, right? I mean, it is just ridiculous. And I'm sorry I'm getting upset about it, but I had the LSAT. I plan to take the LSAT in the location.
You don't have to be sorry at all. I love the passion. I absolutely love the passion about this, because I think this is so important.
And to be clear, I'm not just mad. This has changed the trajectory of how I engage with my faith and how I engage with the church writ large. So one of the other things, I didn't tell Cece about this because I didn't want her to freak out. She was in her last year of college. I had to take the LSAT. I'd signed up to take the LSAT in this place, and I got kicked out of the house. And so I lived in my car for like a week or two, and took the LSAT, and then was like, and I didn't want to leave these people hanging. And I had committed to working at this place for a year. I was going to work as long as they needed me to transition out and figure out a succession plan. I wasn't going to leave these people hanging like I had just done, right? These adults who were comfortable and well taken care of could not see past their own balance sheets about how that affected people. And that is the fundamental problem. So I ended up coming back to San Antonio to live with my parents for a year. Honestly, best thing that could have happened to me, right? There's the small things. It allowed me to study. I pretty easily found a job. I reached out to a few people I'd worked with before. So I had things to do. And most of the people that I worked with there were not so lucky. And I still keep in touch with most of them. Not a single one of them is back in church. And so to every older person that's listening to this, when you ask, why aren't these young people coming back? Look in the mirror, look at what you have done, and really think about, how does this affect other people? How have the things that I've done affect other people? Because it's not just numbers. When you're funding things, when you're providing support, this means something. And it means something to the people who are involved in it. And so when you're involved in your church communities, even if you're not on the board, even if you're not making the decision, there could have been someone that said, hey, what we did is wrong, right? All it takes is one or two people to say, what the hell, guys? This is not appropriate. And so I'm challenging every single person out there who's listening to be that person in your community. When you see something isn't right or it doesn't feel right to you, or someone reaches out and they say, hey, man, I need help, pay attention to that. Because look, this is a part of living in community. This is a part of the social contract that we've made as people, right? And as people of faith. My God, what would Jesus do? That's the first question you should ask. The first question you shouldn't ask is, are we going to be able to do the new renovations to our church for this? That's not the first question you should ask. Or the first question you should ask should be, who are we taking care of here? Who did Jesus take care of? Where did Jesus worship? Not in a big church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Not in a big. No. And I don't mean
No.
to stop,
It's good.
and I don't
So
mean to,
let me do the transition now. Right. How have I taken this? So this is the part of the story in our garden analogy that we had weed killer or hail or whatever you want to call it thrown on the garden. I did not want to go to church. The pastor of the church that I was at reminded me of the one of the pastors who was responsible for this program. So I was like, there's no chance I was going back to church. So I didn't go. I was mad. I did not go back to church for probably not until I got to Chicago. So there was almost a year where my parents were still going every Sunday, to be clear. I just didn't go with them because I was just so hurt and upset about this. And one of the things that I kind of realized while I was there is this thing that I was complaining about earlier, right? All it would take is one person to say, guys, what the heck? Let's think about this for a while. Let's try to be creative. Let's try to find some kind of solutions. Let's connect them with resources. Let's do more than give them $500 and say, please don't sue us.
Don't sue us.
That was part of the agreement. That was part of the agreement of the $500, right, that we signed. And look, I'm a lawyer, man. I get it. But come on. You don't have to do that if you take care of your people. So that's what I realized. Cece went to seminary. She helped me get reconnected with church, feel that importance of that. And one of the things that I committed to myself is I was going to be one, I'm going to be on that board helping make that decision. And two, I'm going to fight with people on that. One of the things that I have experienced on being on these nonprofit boards is there's a lot of yes men and women that the organization comes and they say, this is what we want to do, and this is why we think we should do it. And there's no challenging to that. Right. And people don't think critically about, like, how is this, again, who are the people that this is affecting? How does this affect their lives? How do we make their lives appreciably better? And so, I can't be on church councils now anymore because I'm married to a pastor. Love you, my love. But I think that it's my obligation, even as, I'm again, incredibly busy. Cece will attest to the fact that, like, sometimes we'll have like a board meeting at 7 p.m. and I woke up at like 3 or 4 a.m. to get my work done so that I could go and be a part of that and like and help make those decisions. And so the other thing too is, like, you see an effect of that, right? I won't go into too many details, but recently we had a board meeting and there was a suggested policy change about some stuff. And I said, hey, I don't think this is quite right. Like, we need to work on this before we get it done. And I convinced a room of a bunch of people who are 10 to 50 years my senior that, like, something needed to be changed, right? And I think the outcome that we got is appreciably better for the people that this policy affects. And so you can be that change, but it requires getting involved, which is not always fun, especially when you have been, in my case, right, like, really hurt by those kind of people. And so, and this again goes back to what we've been discussing before, right? How do you pour into your community, right? How do you pour into people that are pouring into you? And this isn't the right way for everyone, but I would I would say, right, if you're young, get involved on boards, get involved in your church leadership, get involved in the community you care about, because that's one of the easiest ways, especially because there aren't that many young adults, to help create spaces that young adults feel safe, seen, and taken care of, and feel like they can be poured into. And we have a lot of that at Gather. Like another plug for Gather, we have a lot of church leaders that need another space to be a part of. So yeah.
And in this board meeting Mike was talking about, there were 3 of us in it that are all a part of Gather. In our Gather community, there are people who sit on their church's council that are Sunday school teachers, that lead in the worship band, that like are deeply involved and invested in their, like, go weekly to serve at the food pantry. And I think Mike can maybe attest to it, but it seems to me that because Gather pours into them, they can then go out and pour into their communities.
It's equipping. It's equipping. I view Gather as equipping people and preparing them for the next day. Like Gather grounds me in a way that nowhere else does. Right? Just being. I mean, in my typical work, a lot of the times I'm the youngest person in the room by a fair bit. And I'm sure that's true of a lot of people. And so being in a space with other young adults where we can swap stories and just be, right, in a way that's where there's no expectations about what's required is just so, I think, so important to equipping and preparing to go out and do the next thing. So I feel really, really, really blessed to be a part of a community like that. And so that's my pitch, right? Is I am not a church every Sunday kind of guy anymore. And a big part of that is one, how my life's just kind of become and choices that I've made. Part of that's intentional. I'm sure you hear it a lot on this podcast, but it's tough to be a young adult in a church. I mean, even sometimes when Cecie and I go together, when are you going to have kids? Right? Like that's one of the first questions out of people's mouths.
Questions not to ask
questions not to ask adults. Or like, oh my God, we hope so much that you come back. And it's like, I just like worshiping, right? Like I like music. I will come back. And I'm excited to get to know you, right? And I just my hope is when you get involved with your community like that, you can make spaces that you want, right? And Gather is proof of that. It is making a space by young adults for young adults, and it doesn't need to be Gather, right? It can be a group at your church. It can be something else. But in a lot of ways, I mean, it's really helped reinvigorate. Gather itself has really helped reinvigorate my faith and my faith life. In some ways, like it's taking the power back, right? It's being able to create spaces and make something that fills me, right? And quite frankly, I like church. It does not fill me in the same way that Gather does. It doesn't really stretch me intellectually. It doesn't challenge me in a lot of ways. I mean, and maybe this is a part of it, but like we're on a 3-year liturgy. I'm almost 30 years old now. I mean, I've heard I've read all these stories before. I remember them, and I really like the challenge of these kind of new perspectives, right? Like outside of the church space. So, yeah, that's what I'll say.
Can I just say thank you, first of all, for sharing your story and for being so, again, passionate. I love the passion that you got. And I hope that those who are listening do get stirred by that passion and are encouraged to then not only just show up in their communities, but be the ones to speak out, like you said, because just what a beautiful testament. So thank you for being so vulnerable and willing to share your passion with us today.
And I would be a little bit remiss too if I didn't talk about what it's like to be married to a pastor. I love it.
Yikes.
It's so interesting. And my goodness, just getting an inside view on the challenges that pastors have to deal with on a daily basis is crazy. I mean, Cece will tell me stories about people that she's ministering to or things that are going on that obviously, I'm never going to share. But I'm like, holy cow, that is not something that I could do. It's walking alongside people. It's listening to them. It's being it's literally like being just in some ways in community and in space with them. And quite frankly, like it's a bit of a challenge. Cece was before working here at the 787 collective in Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. She was a pastor out in Spicewood. And I'm sure people have heard about this, but it's kind of interesting in a way because when you have like a normal 9 to 5 job, your schedules just don't align like, at all. Uh, the one day a week typically you may have off that kind of overlaps is Saturday. And and even then for us, it was a lot of the times our Saturdays didn't necessarily overlap, or there's something going on or some event that she's a part of or doing. And I really, I mean, it's such a privilege to see her prepare and walk alongside of people. And also, it's tough, right? Like other people too. Pastors, that is not an easy job. So go thank your pastor today or tomorrow
Amen to that.
because they really do incredible work. And quite frankly, I think that a lot of people, because here's one of my other theories, right? As lay people, you don't view a pastor as someone you're paying to do a job a lot of the times. They are they're not just that. They're a friend, they're a confidant, they're a leader. And so I think sometimes we as people kind of forget that it's also a job and take advantage of that fact because we have such great access now, and quite frankly, because people like you, Phil, and Cece like are just so willing to and care so deeply about the people that you're serving. And so the other thing I'd caution too is think about it. Sometimes if you're thinking about reaching out to them late at night or early in the morning or on their days off, just like take a beat before sending that text because they're also people too, and they would love you and will respond and love to be a part of your community. But on the on the flip side, this is a job for them as well. So it was important to respect that too. And they're really tired.
They're really tired.
They're so tired.
I thought Mike was going to say, just take a moment and then don't. Because Mike's been with me in the car, 9 o'clock, driving home on a Saturday. Call from a parishioner. Gotta answer. I have to answer. I will learn if I ever go back in a parish Saturday night, that's a voicemail. I'll look at the voicemail. If it's urgent, I'll call him back. I have to work on my own boundaries.
There you go. There it is.
Mike, very, very briefly,
Yes.
like in 1 minute, can you tell us? I remember kind of talking about this with you on a walk. Do you have a Lenten practice this year? Do you have a Lenten discipline, something that's helping you tend that garden?
Weed that garden.
Weed that garden.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think about it. I mean, really, I think my Lenten practice is. I don't like. This is just me, and I know a lot of people like. I don't view like Lent as a time to take away something that you love, right? Or that you think is like a vice or something like that. I think it's an opportunity to grow into something new. Um, and so, for me, this year, that's been uh, being intentional with my time off. I am a consummate people pleaser. I like to help people out. I like to do things, especially with my work that leads to, sometimes really unhealthy things. And so I've been really trying to focus on taking intentional time or space to just be, right? Be with the people that I love to pick up the phone instead of checking my work email, pick up the phone and give someone a call, and deepen those existing relationships that I do have, because that is one way that I feel nourished, right? I mean, I feel so blessed to have so many exceptional people in my life, so many exceptional mentors, friends, and I'm not always the best at communicating and tending those gardens as well. But again, when you pour out like that, it just comes right back to you. So
I love all the garden metaphors. Just makes me happy. And that metaphor ran really good throughout the entire episode. So very well done, everybody, on the garden metaphor. I'm just, again, so grateful for you taking time. You are busy, we know. And so taking time to share with us today. And any final word that you want to leave? I feel like you've left us with a lot of really good nuggets. Any final thing that you feel like you didn't get a chance to say that you want to leave with, whether that's young adults? Cece, I didn't take my chance to tokenize a young adult. So if you want to speak on behalf of all young adults about anything, here's your chance.
Well, last thing I'm going to say is, as a young adult, remember that God is a gardener, right? It's not going to feel like he's like he or she or God's not going to feel like they're there all the time. And as a young adult, when you feel isolated, that's not the case. It's just waiting for the next opportunity to come, sprinkle some water for the sun to come out, do some weeding. So when you're feeling alone or like stuff's not going well, remember that that's the case. And also remember that the God, the gardener, is going to be feeding you in ways that you can't expect, right? It's going to be the people around you. It's going to be your community. And so keep an eye out for that, and don't isolate yourself, because the best thing that you can do to tend your garden is be in those spaces with people that you care about and that you love.
Beautiful.
Go to some other gardens. Shout out to Reverend Mindy Roll of Treehouse Campus Ministry for taking us to Holden Village, where we talked about God the Gardener back in
a long time ago now.
2017. I remember that was the first time Mike said, I think God to me is a gardener. And thank you. Phil said, let's get some more young adults lined up on the podcast. And I said, I've really been kicking over the idea of inviting my husband, because he is deeply invested in communities of faith. He is a consummate professional that's really, really busy and still takes the time to advocate and challenge, as you could tell. Selfishly, he's the best thing in my life. So it's always good to highlight that. But Mike, thank you for the work that you do on behalf of young adults, for what you do for Gather, for what you do for our friends and family, thinking even this past weekend, putting your phone away, building a crib with your brother who's welcoming his first child later this spring, right?
I will.
Tend your garden too.
Sorry, one final thing. I know I keep saying one final thing, but like anyone who's listening, like reach out, right? I'm here. If you are struggling or you've had ways that, you've been hurt by the church and you're not quite sure what's next, reach out, right? Like, I'm always happy to talk to anybody about that and how I view it, because, scars are still there, right? Those things never leave, but you can decide, you can choose to decide what's next for you. Peace.
Mike, thanks so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Collective Voice, the premier podcast of the 787 Collective. For more information, visit us at 787collective.org or find us on social media. And if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate us, and share a review. For when you do, you are tricking the algorithm for the common good.